Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Follow Your Passion podcast. And today I have a special guest, a fellow coach, actually, and her name is Sarah Jones. Sarah is a seasoned leadership coach, born with an entrepreneurial spirit and an insatiable drive to help others find their happiness. Sarah founded her successful coaching business to help people find purpose, both personally as in their careers, and succeed as leaders. She has 25 years plus up to the board level experience through her own leadership career, leading teams and programs for AstraZeneca, DHL, and many others. She works with leaders who need to rebuild confidence, resilience, and adopt a more conscious, self-aware leadership style to become a more effective leader. And she just shared that she just finished a training with female leaders. Welcome, Sarah. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Irvin. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast and
Yeah, you're
introducing me so
welcome.
nicely.
So, what made you decide to go onto the path of coaching?
Yeah, I think in my 20s, I had coaching from quite an early age. And
Hmm.
certainly in the UK, coaching wasn't as well known as it is today. It's a lot more commonplace for especially leaders, motivated individuals to have a coach. And I was okay, I was doing well, but I felt that I wasn't quite attracting the results that I wanted in my life. So a friend of mine said, look, my friend's becoming a coach. Would you like some sessions with her? So I said, okay. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know what it meant. But actually, after a few weeks, the way that I viewed my results in life, the way that I was thinking about certain things completely revolutionized. I was always a positive person, but I just felt I wasn't quite satisfied in my career. And it really helped me to think differently and really started the whole journey, I think. And ever since then, I've had coaches for different areas of my life. And then I had another coach who I actually reconnected with, and we're talking about 20 years ago. I reconnected with her recently, and we had a Zoom coffee. And I said to her, do you realize what an impact you made on my life? You know, how you got me to see things differently, how you introduced me to concepts and tools I'd never heard of. And I think she was really quite emotional about that. She said, oh gosh, I didn't
Mm,
realize.
yeah,
But it did, it really did.
nice. And
Mm.
I totally recognize what you're saying because um, I'm not sure how it is in the UK, but in the Netherlands as well, it's almost like when you're taking on a coach or a therapist, people might think, or at least that's the general opinion, that you're not successful, you can't do it by yourself, right? Stuff like that. While if you look at sports, it's totally accepted and it makes common sense that if you want to achieve to the top, if you want to reach the top, you need a coach to get there, right? And in the United States, I work a lot with Americans as well. Then it's normal sense to have a coach if you want to achieve the best and become the best version of yourself.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, look at the Lakers, the basketball team. Okay, it's a very different style of coaching. Look at some of the athletes and how they've used visualization and motivational behavioral techniques to reach the success. And they've all got coaches. And now you're seeing sports over time talking about mindset, talking about behaviors, behavioral science. And I think in the US, to your point, Owen, it's very normal to have a coach. And indeed, it's probably, if I can say this, not normal to not have a coach. Whereas I think in other markets, it's a bit different. It's a bit different
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And I always say that we don't see our own blind spots, right? That's why they're called blind spots.
Exactly.
And you need an
Exactly.
external person to spar with you, to give you this mirror and look. Do you see this? Do you know this about yourself? Do you recognize it? What if you do
Yeah.
this, or how do you think
Yeah.
about that? And
Yeah.
it's almost invariable, right?
If I do this, I can see the end of my nose. But if I do this, I can just about see the end of my nose. And that's a metaphor I use. I don't know if it makes sense in
Yeah,
other
yeah,
languages, but we can't see inside ourselves. But it's that objectivity. I don't know if you find, but it's the objectivity, the non-judgment. And actually, in this crazy busy world that we live in, someone holding space for us where we can really open up and listen, and where somebody
Yeah.
will listen to you, whatever area of life it is.
It's it remembers me of one of my coaches who once said that if you would consider yourself like being in a box, right, then you can't see from the inside what's in it, right? You need somebody from the outside to read the label what's
Yeah.
inside of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know whether you've, like throughout your career, I'm sure you've had feedback or somebody's got in touch with you about your coaching services and said, oh, speak to Erwin, he's so this, he's so that, and described you. And it's like, wow, yeah, that person really sees me in a certain way. And
Yeah.
I like to look at what's right with people rather than what's wrong. But sometimes we do have to look in, when you're driving, you have to adjust the mirror to see where you've come from. I think that's also really important. And I think as well, when we go through different ages, phases in life, if we're attuned to ourselves, things happen that change us or adapt our values or what we want in life. But sometimes we don't know how to express it because we are, as you say, we're inside that box, and it might have a bow and a wrapper and we can't get outside of the box really.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the fact that you used the back mirror just as a metaphor, right? Because it's also, you can't reach the end goal if you keep looking in the back mirror, right?
Yeah. But it's really interesting because sometimes obviously coaching is different. It's about moving people forward, but it's the mindset. There's a quote that the mindset is the ground of everything. It's a Buddhist quote. And I really believe that because when I'm coaching leaders of different ages and generations, different industries, sometimes we just need to look a little bit and adjust and think, okay, so what was my upbringing? What was my role in the family? For example, am I doing the same thing in my career, but it's not being as successful for me? So it's a little bit of adjustment, but yeah, 100% moving. I think what I like is that you feel, certainly with my clients, I don't know about yours, but they have what I call light bulb moments. The light goes on
after
a couple of sessions. And it's like, aha, because you're outside of them. Yeah.
I had such a light bulb moment myself, like almost exactly 1 year ago, and it makes such a profound impact. I still remember it, right? It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Can you remember such like a light bulb moment for yourself?
Yeah, I think I've always been, my former career was in corporate affairs, communications, public relations, government affairs. So, and I found that I'm really, really good in a crisis situation. I'm quite calm. Smaller problems, I'd have to work on a bit more. Day-to-day problems, I've had to work on a bit more. And I think one of my coaches reflected to me and said, oh, Sarah, you don't always need a crisis to gain momentum. So it's like, yeah, absolutely. So that concept of consistency, perseverance is something I've grown to love in terms of, just relax a bit. It doesn't have to be that something big happens. There doesn't have to be a big worry in your life for you to be motivated.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was in there. It was just buried somewhere inside of me.
Yeah. So if I may ask, Sarah, how did you start your own coaching business?
Yeah. Well, I was working. I was happy in my career. I had a career plan. I was very self-motivated, loved leading teams, and I had a very clear plan of getting to a senior position and then going self-employed. So going freelancing. At the time, I was a very avid cave diver, scuba diver. That was my passion. So my passions were my career and my sport, my extreme diving. And I would freelance travel, freelance travel, which was like, yes, this is what I've always wanted. And then I did it for a few years, a number of years, and I thought, not sure I want to do it this way anymore. Not
Yeah.
sure I'm really feeling satisfied, even with the freelance work. So that's when I really started thinking about, well, what do I do now? And I tell you, I wasted a bit of time and a bit of money. I did all sorts of courses. I learned how to become a spinning instructor. I learned how to become a dog walker. I looked at all these different things, which I don't regret because we always learn something and put ourselves in new situations. But I was like fishing around, trying to find, well, what is it?
Oh
And I was
yeah,
having,
yeah, yeah.
I was having coaching at the time, and my coach, Alison, at the time said, well, as a coach, I'm not really supposed to suggest too much to you, but had you ever thought of becoming a coach? And as soon as she said it, I went, oh my goodness, that is so obvious. And I said, what made you say that? And she listed off the attributes of being a coach. And I still keep in touch with her now. And I say, oh, thank you for saying that, because as soon as she said it, I thought, yeah, 100%. And that's when it started, really. It was just like, yes, absolutely. And I don't know about you, Owen, it's, running your own business has its own challenges, but I just get such energy. I give energy and I receive energy from my clients. It is work, but it doesn't feel like work, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. It's a profession, right? It's not
Yeah,
work, it's a profession. I would almost say it's like a purpose-driven business, right?
100%.
You have the ability to help people profoundly, to help them transform, to help them change, to help them to become the best version of themselves. And your
Yeah.
clients are willing to pay for that service.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you can't put a price on it. I was at a networking meeting a few weeks ago, and I had the question that I've not heard somebody ask for years. What's the value of coaching? And it's like, wow, nobody's asked me that for ages. So I described it's about giving you fast momentum, looking at how you see things, setting goals, moving towards them, progress, accountability. You can't put a price on it. It's just, if it's the right coach for you, and as long as you're solving the right problem. Sometimes I find with my clients that they'll come to me with a particular problem, and it might be something else that we need to fix first.
Oh yeah, yeah, I totally recognize that. I remember it when I started out as a hypnotherapist.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
That people came to me with a certain challenge, and I thought to myself, sure, that's not too hard, right? For instance, nail biting, right?
Oh, yes, yes.
And you can solve that in one session easily, right? Yet when I proposed that and we did the session, I noticed there was something else that led to this nail biting, right?
Yeah,
So the nail biting itself, it wasn't the issue, it was a coping mechanism for something deeper. And I should have actually offered him a second session to
yeah,
truly get rid of it, right? But it was a very great learning experience for me, because nowadays when people come to me with hypnotherapy, yeah, I don't promote it, I don't market it, but people can still come to me.
mm,
I'll just sell them a package of 3 sessions,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because you never know what's behind the real issue, and it's totally understandable, because the internet, the world is your playground. If
yeah,
people are ill, they start googling it and they get an idea what it is, and the moment they think that this is the issue they have, they get blinders, right?
yeah,
And they're all focused on that. And that's
mm,
when they come to a therapist, to a doctor, or to you or to me, and they say, well, this is the issue I have.
mm,
And if you don't dive into that and take a step back and start questioning them,
mm.
then you might fall into the trap of working on the wrong problem.
That's right. And I think behind things like nail biting and other behaviors, there's a feeling behind that. It's a feeling that you have or you don't have about yourself,
Yeah.
a belief that a feeling inside that then becomes a belief, goes into your brain, and whether you're aware of it or not, starts playing a script. And I actually think the more that you raise your level of awareness, there's always more to do, because life always puts us in new situations which might take us back a step, or our life changes, or you have a different set of problems. The problem I had with my first coach in my 20s, those aren't necessarily the challenges I have today. I have a different set of challenges.
Oh, definitely.
The challenges will come, and it's
Yeah.
about, I don't know why, I've just thought of archaeology. Sometimes it's about digging away and finding what's the feeling behind it, what's the mindset behind it.
Yeah,
behind
definitely.
things.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, do you still remember your first coaching client, Sarah?
Let me think. Yes, I do actually. It was a lady that was setting up her own business, and I was sort of building my portfolio and I wasn't sure where I was going with it. And I was teaching people or coaching people more on their careers, really. And this lady came to me and said about business coaching. And I said, well, I'm not strictly speaking a business coach, although I had studied that. That wasn't where I was specializing. But when we started speaking, it was very clear that it was actually a confidence issue, which was something I had trained quite a lot in. So I do remember that. I remember feeling, as I still do to this day, that it's not for me to give my personal advice. I was always taught that, because sometimes if you talk to friends and family and they say, well, why don't you do this? I'll just do this. And you have a reaction because it's like, well, that's not actually what I need,
Yeah.
And I remember the responsibility that I feel to this day, that it's my job to make sure that that person, although they're responsible for their own health and well-being, that I do the best by that client and treat everybody as an individual. So it's quite nerve-wracking to start with, to think, oh, I've got to be really careful about everything I say, etc. And I still am. I still obey the rules of the road of coaching that I learned, but it's nice to bring your own style into it as well. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Do you remember yours, Owen? Do you remember your first client?
Yeah. Well, I remember my one of my first volunteers with hypnotherapy. That my trainer back then, he said, if you want to do something really with hypnotherapy, you start working with clients. So of course, the first few times you ask friends and family, and then I started to. I thought to myself, I should start working with strangers. So I put up a post on in a Facebook group, in the local Facebook group, that I was doing this training for hypnotherapists, and I wanted to make some hours, right? And if somebody wanted to help me to gain experience and had an issue, they wanted to working maximum 3 sessions, that they should comment and I would contact them. I removed that post within 3 days because I already had like 34 volunteers.
Wow.
And the first 3 were all women, divorced, and their ex was how do you call it?
Toxic?
Yeah, more or less toxic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so all they actually wanted to feel confident and in their own power and their own strength.
Yeah.
So I thought this seems to be a theme over here, right? The 4th one was my first male client, and we had a great pre-talk. And so I said, okay, well, it's very clear what you want, right? So you can go sit in the chair and we'll start the hypnotherapy session. And he sat in the chair and he said to me, I'm not sure if I'm easy to be hypnotized.
Yeah.
Because he has been on stage with a stage hypnotist to get rid of smoking 3 times, and it didn't work for him. And I only had 1 weekend of training, like 3 days. And I said to him, without a doubt, I said, well, that's fine, but you just talked about it and you want this, so it's going to happen, right? And I still don't know how till day, but there was not There was no doubt in my mind whatsoever.
Yeah.
And we did the session. He went in very deep, actually. It was very easy to be hypnotized. We did the session. He was amazed afterwards. I said, I'll contact you in a week time to see how
Yeah.
you're doing. If you need to book a second session, we'll do it then. I contacted him after a week. I said, well, how are you doing? He said, Erwin, I'm doing great. You've transformed my life. There's no need for a second session. Everything is great. I'm
Wow.
forever grateful to you. And if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know.
Mm.
And it gave me such a rush, right? I thought,
Yeah.
wow, this is why I do
Yeah.
the things I'm doing. And
Yeah.
that's,
Mm.
still remember today. And it's like 8 years ago.
Yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? Because with hypnotherapy, there's such a perception of what hypnotherapy is. As you described, that person on the stage, jokes and etc. And I can't remember the exact definition of hypnotherapy, but it's not what people think it is that you might see in the media. It's something like a relaxed state of being or something, isn't it?
Do you know how I explain it? I suppose that you read a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever had the experience that you started reading a book or a story that somebody recommended to you, and you said, okay, well, let's have a go, and you start reading, and you're so caught up in the story that you totally lose track of time. You thought about reading for 30 minutes, and before you know, it's 2 hours ahead of time.
Yeah.
While normally they're just blank white pages with black letters, right? There's nobody forcing you to read it. It's all up to you. It's your own decision to keep reading, right? Because every second you can put the book aside and start doing something else, right?
Yeah.
For me, that's a perfect description of a hypnotherapy session, right? The author of the book has engaged you into the story that you want to know how it ends. And with hypnotherapy, that you could consider me to be a storyteller, that your subconscious wants to know the end of the story. And it's your subconscious that keeps you in some sort of trance.
Yeah.
But every moment you want, you can get out of it and say, well, great story, Aaron, but I've got a lot of things to do.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you're still in control, but it's your subconscious that keeps you in this form of trance.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes total sense. That switching off type piece and daydreaming, the concept that actually daydreaming is a very useful exercise.
Yeah. And it's a much broader concept than the image people have from stage hypnosis, right? Sometimes I say that people are afraid to do a hypnotherapy session, right? But if you're going to yoga classes, at the end of the class, the teacher or the trainer is giving you a guided meditation, right? It's totally acceptable. Well, try to explain the difference to me.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the intention of this guided meditation is relaxation, right? But if you have a different intention with this guided meditation, it becomes a hypnotherapy session.
Yeah. And actually, I'm just thinking about metaphors that one would use for coaching, like descriptions of, you said about the book, and you're not really reading the book. And I've had clients say all sorts of things to me, like, you're like a little you're like a little person sitting on my shoulder, just when I'm in interactions in meetings. Oh, what would Sarah say? But I like to think of it as, like a Sherpa, if you're climbing a mountain and you've got a guide with you. So yeah, I mean, how do you describe coaching if we were to have an example, a metaphor?
It's I would almost, you could maybe even say it like an independent mirror.
Yeah.
Right? We let you keep looking at yourself. Make you aware of the challenges you're facing, and we help you to think differently about yourself and how you, right? It's sparring like we're doing right now that will give you new insights. right? Because, for instance, my oldest son, he sometimes asks me a question and I return the question because it's not clear to me, right? But he has already had a whole thought process that led up to this question, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when you have a question yourself, it doesn't mean that that's the right question, because there could have been a thought process ahead of that that led to this question. But if I return the question, or I ask you what's behind it, right? Or how does it feel?
Yeah.
How did you come to this conclusion that you think this and this? Then it will trigger another thought process in your mind, and you might come up with your own conclusion.
Yeah.
But like I said at the beginning, we don't see our own blind spots. So some things are so normal to us that we don't notice it.
Yeah. Or we're so uncomfortable with what we're feeling, and that inner critic is so loud and critical that we shut it down.
Yeah.
Instead of, because I think particularly in the business arena, I always say we're human doings, not human beings. I mean, I probably couldn't even count up how many PowerPoint slides I did over the course of my career. I'd love to know. It's in the thousands. And sometimes I would say, well, do I have to do a PowerPoint slide deck? I can just talk about what I know. What? It's about productivity, what we do, rather than who we are sometimes. Hopefully that's changing in certain organizations.
Yeah, it reminds me of a YouTube video I saw from a Belgian man, and it's about almost about death by PowerPoint, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he said that back in the days we had great speakers, right? One of the biggest ones of all, of course, Martin Luther King, right?
Yeah.
Standing there in front of thousands of people, I have a dream, right? And telling all the story. And then he suggested how Martin Luther King would have held his speech nowadays with the use of PowerPoint.
That's really interesting. I'd love to watch that video. I'm going to
totally broke myself up, right?
Yeah. That's brilliant. Oh gosh, yeah. It would look very different. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. But it's true, right? It's I believe we have our own strength, our own powers. And as a coach, it's almost like our duty to unveil the powers of our clients and their inner strengths.
Yeah. It's really interesting. One of the questions that I often ask, if it's appropriate, is, give me some of your key strengths. Give me 3 of your key strengths. Oh, I don't know. I've never thought of that before. Or I've never been asked that question.
Yeah.
And these are people that have been in their career for a long time. And it just shows you how we're wired sometimes to not think of ourselves.
Well, do you also notice that when questioning your clients, that if you ask them what they want, they start telling you what they don't want anymore?
Yeah.
It's very easy to tell you what you don't want, but if you ask them what they truly want, they have a hard time with it.
Yeah.
And like one of my coaches said, what you resist will persist. So
100%. And sometimes there is a bit of digging through the garden to get there, because human brains are wired towards negativity. We have that negativity bias. We have hundreds of thousands of thoughts in a day, and most of them are negative, because from our evolution, it's about protecting ourselves from predators.
Oh yeah.
Except those predators, saber-toothed tigers, etc., they're not in the high street, we don't see them, but our brains are still wired towards negativity, towards protection.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's where positive thinking can help, or some of the techniques can help to really make sure that we're not giving into too much negative thinking. I mean, it's inevitable. In life, we're going to have challenges. There are ups and downs, and that resilience to really look at that and grow and learn from failure is important. But we do have that negativity bias.
Oh, definitely. And
Yeah.
I always say that the subconscious has a positive intention, right? It wants to protect you, keep you safe, and take care of you. Yet it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you're happy with the behavior it uses to
Yeah.
execute this intention,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
It's
And
like,
the easiest way to protect you, to take care of you, to keep you safe, is to keep you in your comfort zone.
that's right.
And
But
every
even
time
then,
you try to expand your comfort zone or get out of it, you will get some internal resistance.
oh, 100%. And that's where some of the habits you were talking about can come in. You
Yeah.
know, it's sort of, and actually a comfort zone can be really, really, really uncomfortable.
Oh
And
yeah.
sometimes you get the same scenario, the same scenario, the same scenario occurring until you think, well, that isn't working anymore. So I've got to do something different. But
Yeah.
we are creatures of safety and habit, I think.
Well,
In general.
within your comfort zone, everything is predictable. And that's why the subconscious likes it. Even
Oh,
though it's not good, right? But it's predictable. At least it knows the results of certain actions.
yeah,
And everything outside your comfort zone is unpredictable because you've
yeah,
never done it before.
yeah, yeah. And I guess it's that human psychological need for safety, for security,
Yeah.
and people achieve that. That's why I think leadership coaching, career coaching is so important, because people want that from where they work as well. That's the number one. I want to feel safe and valued where I work. But yeah, it is the
Yeah.
human dilemma. We're sort of fighting against our own instincts all the time, aren't we?
Yeah.
Like gladiators. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's also that uh we get distance from our true self, from our true identity, right? We like to be a part of something bigger, right? To be part of a
Belonging.
crowd. We want to belong. And when you want to be a part of something, you have to more or less commit yourself to the majority to fit in,
Like
right?
you almost disassociate from yourself a bit.
Well, that's the issue, right? You're putting water to the wine, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? And I guess you also know the video game Tetris.
Yes, I
Yeah,
do.
I got a T-shirt that says Tetris taught me that if you try to fit in, you'll disappear.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I loved it as well.
Fantastic.
But
That is
that's
amazing.
actually it's very profound if you think about it,
It is.
right? If you do your best to fit into the middleman, uh, to the average person, you lose your authenticity.
Yeah, that's something as well that I find where people, like professionals, sort of hit a brick wall, where they've stayed with a company, they're very loyal, supportive people that like to do good, and then change keeps happening, change keeps happening, change keeps happening. And they hit a brick wall. I've had, I don't know about you, but a number of people coming to me saying, I've just lost myself. I don't know what I want anymore, but I don't think it's this. And
Yeah,
when you hear them talk, it's, where are you in all of this? I don't even know who I am anymore. Yeah. Mm,
yeah. Well,
mm.
it's painful to hear, but I feel so blessed that we have the capabilities and skills to help them, right?
Definitely, definitely. Because there is a way out, but I think it's a certain kind of person that's able and willing to coach. I think you've got to, I don't know what you think, but I know they say anyone's coachable, but some people just aren't ready to take that step yet, are they? I don't know if you've had people that phoned you and you've had a good conversation and just said, oh, I'm just not ready to take that step yet, because they're still in the comfort zone.
Oh
And
yeah,
I sort of feel that it's not my job to push and force. I want people to work with me because they are ready or nearly ready to take that step
yeah,
and
yeah,
really step into who they could be.
yeah. I had the same when I was starting out as hypnotherapist. That um, it's possible that sessions could be paid by the healthcare insurance.
Oh yeah.
But in order to get those paid, as a hypnotherapist, you have to follow an additional course and get a certificate.
Okay.
With that certificate, you can join like a branch institution.
Hmm.
And when you've joined, then the healthcare insurance companies will pay for your sessions, right?
Yeah. Mm.
And I chose not to do that.
Okay. Why was that?
Well,
Because
because when you're as a hypnotherapist, it's important for your client that he or she wants to change, right? Because it eventually it's the client themselves that make the change and I'm just
yeah,
guiding them, right?
yeah,
And if the choice, well, I should invest some money, but also a lot of my time to get this certification so that my sessions get their, so that my clients, potential clients
yeah,
get their sessions paid.
yeah, yeah,
And if their choice to work with me depends on the fact that their sessions are getting paid by the insurance company or not, then I rather work with other patients
yeah.
because I want them to truly want this change.
That
And if,
self-motivation.
yeah, and if they get the money back from the insurance company, it should be a bonus and not a must,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And I can recommend other therapists, fellow therapists that have those constructions.
Mm.
And I'm more than happy to forward those clients to
Yeah,
them because they're not just my clients.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. And I don't, but what I sometimes find is that people that have decided coaching isn't right for them at that time, 9 times out of 10, they come back 6 months later, nothing's got better. In fact, it's got worse. So that happens a lot as well. And I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be judgmental about that. You know, we've all had times in our life where it's, oh, do I do this? Do I do that? And you know, people have other financial demands, etc.
Yeah, and it's all a learning experience. You know what you told me at the beginning that you trained this, you did this, you did that. Always wanted to raise my hand, guilty as charged. You know, been it,
Yeah,
done it, got the T-shirt.
yeah, 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 yeah. The Tetris t-shirt.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. I think you should produce them or something, or have your own spin on it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so Sarah, I know since we're both passionate about coaching and helping people, we could talk for this for hours.
I know.
But I also have to think a little bit about my audience.
That's right. Yeah.
If there's one tip or little piece of wisdom or experience you want to share with the audience, what would it be?
I think that, gosh, there's so much I could say. I'm just going to give a couple of tips for when you're feeling really stressed and triggered. Breathe, breathe, take a deep breath. We think, well, as we talked about this negativity bias, what, 80,000 plus thoughts in a day? No, more than that. 84% of what we fear doesn't come true. And very often when I'm working with leaders, they're worried about how they're coming across. Yes, there might be some development, but people are far too busy thinking about themselves. So breathe, stretch, look up into the sky, which I know sounds bizarre, but when people say in English, we say, oh, you look down, as in bit down low,
Yeah.
because you're doing that. So look up and just try a couple of things like that and think about what you're grateful for. Very, very simple techniques that sometimes come into the coaching that I do when it comes to mindset. There's always something you can be grateful for, and it's like a magnet. The more that you find to be grateful for, the more that there is that attracts towards you. So those are just some very simple techniques.
Yeah, perfect.
Mm.
So thank you for that, Sarah. If people
Pleasure.
want to know more about you or follow you or contact you, how
Yeah.
can they do that?
If you just Google Sarah Jones Coaching, my URL, if you just Google Sarah Jones Coaching, I should come up near the top.
Yeah.
My web guy's done a good job, I have to say. But it's www.sarah-letterj.com. So it's a bit of a complex URL, but Sarah Jones Coaching,
Yeah.
Hertfordshire, UK. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's Sarah with an H, right?
Sarah with an H. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Rather than the European Sarah. But
Yeah.
I don't mind Sarah, but over here it's Sarah. It means princess, apparently.
Perfect. Well, thank you,
Brilliant.
Sarah, for having this wonderful
Thank you,
conversation and sharing your insights and experience. Lovely to talk to you, and definitely let's keep in touch.
Definitely. Thank you, Owen. Thank you.